Welcome back to the Tiga Tactics podcast, show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including martial arts, combat sports, and street combatives. Our resident MANs, martial arts nerds, include co-founder of Tiga Tactics and holder of black belts in 9 different styles, Dr. Conrad Bui.
Hello, everyone.
We also have black belt holder in 4 different styles, the other co-founder, Patrick Vuong.
Greetings, martial arts geeks.
And I am your third co-host, retired Army Special Forces soldier and our champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR man Perperis. We are recording this episode again after Dragon Fest, and no, my voice hasn't gotten any better because it's like 5 minutes after we recorded the last episode.
Oh, don't give away the secrets.
Oh,
come on.
sorry.
You opened
No, it's been 2 weeks.
Behind the curtains.
It's been 2 weeks. We showed up. We had another Dragon Fest. I lost my voice again.
Okay, there. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Okay. Again, this episode is brought to you by Vulpus Training as well, because my voice hurts. Conrad, tell me something about Vulpus.
Hey, I am looking forward to putting together some videos using their golok, the machete kind of from Indonesia. So it's well balanced, well made. It looks great. It'll last forever. So check them out if you haven't already.
And check out their Instagram page as well, because we made a couple of videos and they are collaborators with us. So you'll see us moving around. And then also my YouTube page, youtube.com/@ultraocrman, has a bunch of like reviews where I actually talk about the products, hold it, compare it to the live versions, and you can see kind of how it matches up, and then kind of like how they literally like one-to-one replicas. And I'll tell you, honestly, the weight on some of them was actually pretty comparable. They're not super light, but they're not super heavy. So something you could flow with and not feel like one of them is disproportionately heavy. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about, is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu good for self-defense? You know, I think in 1993, UFC 1 happens, and no rules besides no biting, no fish hooking. I think the only 2 rules are eye gouging, whatever it was. And Royce Gracie goes in there, BJJ guy, and basically destroys all these other styles. And I feel like at that point people were like, well, don't need to do any other martial arts, just need Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's the question we're looking at. Is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu good for self-defense? I'm going to kick it over to Patrick.
No.
Oh, no.
Okay, so before I get into it, I have to explain that I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm personally training in it myself. I'm addicted to it. Going to class is probably one of the highlights of my week, to be honest. I love jiu-jitsu, so just keep that in mind. But is it good for street self-defense, like purely combative nature? Not alone. If it's the only system you do, then that's better than no training at all. Then yeah, I would say it's good for self-defense if you're not going to do anything else. But if you want a well-rounded, holistic approach to personal protection and self-defense on the street, then no. And the reason being is that when you learn the art, and jiu-jitsu literally means like the gentle art or the soft art, you are learning an art. There is a traditional system, and so it is not necessarily meant for violence on the street today in modern times. You're going on the mat in the dojo. You're training against one person, only one person, and that person is also training in jiu-jitsu. So you're basically doing jiu-jitsu against each other. So when you do that on the street, you're vulnerable to multiple opponents because you're only used to grappling with one person. And when you are grappling with one person, and often on your back or on the ground, you're then vulnerable to weapons. And in today's society, especially in America, those weapons will be knives, guns, could be pepper spray, mace, it could be improvised weapons. It could be baseball bats, hammers. You never know when you get into a violent situation against a total stranger. Again, this is not mutual combat. It's not like, okay, I'm going to meet you behind the bike racks after school. It's going to be unarmed. No, in a violent ambush, urban ambush, you don't get those. You don't get that opportunity. So for purely street self-defense, no. Especially if you're big into competition. There are a lot of moves in competitive BJJ that have no business whatsoever on the street. Like barambolos and all these flying, jumping, flying arm bars. Like that stuff's not going to work against a meth-addled street thug who just wants to kill you or wants your money. The other thing to keep in mind is that, again, like I mentioned before, it is an art. So you're learning an art, and we love martial arts. Keep that in mind. But again, art doesn't necessarily mean you have the martial. So it's got to be a balanced approach, and understanding that it is an art. You need to fill in the gaps on the martial side of things. Conrad?
Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think all martial arts, when it comes to street self-defense, most of them I think are lacking huge components. Not just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but like most of them don't spend a lot of time talking about pre-attack indicators. They don't spend a lot of time talking about de-escalation. They don't spend a lot of time talking about situational awareness or avoidance, besides just simply saying, hey, make sure you de-escalate, make sure you're situation aware, and avoid everything. Yeah. That's basically the extent. Like, you really need to do some sort of specific branded seminar type focus, because that's the only place I've been exposed to it. Tiga Tactics, obviously, is one. ShivWorks is another one, where they really spend time talking about that kind of like left of bang type of stuff. And I think most martial arts gyms, because most of us going to the martial arts gyms are going there for escapism and to learn a skill and social, in addition to self-protection. We don't want to spend 30 minutes of every hour class watching people get stabbed and shot in real world CCTV videos. It's not fun. That's not escapism. I don't know how much business you're going to keep with that stuff, but it is important, and most martial arts don't include that. It's not something they do. Do I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is an important part of self-defense? I do, because, again, as we saw in UFC 1, if you don't know any grappling and the fight goes to the ground, you're in big trouble. You're in very big trouble. So I think it's an important part, but it is just a part. It's not the end-all, be-all. And, in a lot of street situations, the very last thing you want to do is go to the ground. Again, because you become increasingly vulnerable. When you go to the ground, anyone near you suddenly gets very bold. And they're like, oh, you guys are on the ground? I'm going to stomp on whoever's head I don't like. So it's just, then you can watch the videos of that stuff happening. Now, if it's one-on-one mutual combat and everyone agrees to follow the rules, and then here's the important part, actually follows the rules. Because you can be like, oh, we're going to go fight outside the bar until one of us taps, and then the other guy gets mad because he's losing and bites you or stabs you, or his friends don't like that he's losing. So there's a lot of variables that are not necessarily accounted for in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Let's send it over to Conrad, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
Totally agree with everything that was said. And again, training any martial arts will help improve your odds of surviving a violent attack. Some martial arts or some systems will improve your odds even more, and some less, depending on how martial versus art that you're training. BJJ definitely will improve your odds of surviving a street encounter or for self-defense, because one, it's a grueling art. When you train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you will improve your endurance, you will improve your strength, you'll improve your grips if you train gi. For those people who train no gi, well, then your grip sucks. Yes, you heard that. And grips are one of the most important parts of self-defense. Being able to hold on to somebody's wrist, grab someone's hair, pull them down or whatever. Grips are very important. So training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, whether you do it for fun or whatever, that definitely increases your odds of that. It also increases your mental toughness. Because everybody, I can't say everybody, most people, most of us mortals, when we start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we're getting smashed. Even if you're a big person, you're getting smashed. And that increases your grit, your mental toughness. So if you're in a street fight and you're behind the curve and you're in a bad situation and you have that mental toughness, you can fight through that. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very good at teaching you that. Both Patrick and Evan talked about it. One-on-one in a sterile environment, it's a solid art to have. As Evan mentioned, UFC 1, 2, 3, or 4, where Royce Gracie won those tournaments.
1, 2, 3, and 5.
1, 2, 3, and 5. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember.
no, I'm sorry. He didn't, 5. I'm sorry. 5 was the super fight.
Right. So
1, 2, and 4.
And 4. Yeah. And so I remember number 1. I thought, oh yeah, he won. Unlikely a fluke, but possibly a fluke. Man, he came back and swept it in number 2 again. Like, from then I thought, not a fluke. So, definitely one-on-one. It's probably the best style. If you could just have one style, that was the best back then. And I think it still is if you're just looking at one style and the other person had to put on blinders against jiu-jitsu. So it's still a solid system. The ground, again, is a likely place to be. When you're in a violent situation with somebody, there can be 1,001 objects around you that can cause you to trip, or they could take you down, or you could take them down, or you could both be stumbling to the ground as well, too. So the ground can be a likely place. Is it like what the Gracies said, 90% or 99% of fights go to the ground? Maybe not. But some fights do go to the ground, and it's good to have skills there. I think Evan mentioned in the past, if you get to a blue belt level, you're solid on the street. And anything above blue belt, purple on, would be to go up against another jiu-jitsu person. So you don't need to spend a whole lot of time in Brazilian jiu-jitsu to be good on the street. So also, we want to take the environment into account as well, too. If you're a Brazilian jiu-jitsu person, what both Patrick and Evan mentioned, you don't want to go to the ground. They could have multiple attackers. They could have weapons. The environment might not be to your favor. And most Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms, I'm not going to say all because I've heard that some do. Most schools don't train any striking. So if you end up on the ground or even on your feet and someone's punching you in the face and you're not used to that can freak you out as well too and cause you to freeze. So it's definitely lacking in that department, eye gouging, groin strikes, and things like that as well too.
Yeah, we've talked about it in the Army Combatives episode, but one of the big reasons the Army chose grappling as a large base was because of the mental toughness you developed that you talked about. And then, again, for the Army specifically, if I'm at range, I'm just going to shoot them or stab them. Mm-hmm. And then once I get in too close, then I'm going to grapple. One of the other big reasons, besides the ability to pressure test at near 100%, was when you get good at grappling, I feel like it works very well, very quickly, as compared to striking, where I feel like the learning curve feels longer. Like when you get good at grappling, if you take a blue belt and put him against a white belt, a new white belt, he'll just dominate. Right. Versus if you take someone who's been training a similar amount of time striking against someone else who strikes, I would still bet on the martial artist, but I don't think the percentages are as high. Because I think speed and strength and just your aggressiveness play a bigger factor.
Yeah, and when you're striking, there's sometimes what they call a puncher's chance, just pure luck of getting caught. That's harder to do when you're on the ground. You have less mobility, less options to move certain parts of your body or any part of your body.
Yeah, no one talks about what the chance armbar or chance rear naked choke, right. Chance sweep back mount rear naked choke.
Yeah, you'll never hear about a grappler's chance. Once you hit the ground, the superior grappler has quite the advantage. It's a distinct advantage as well too. And so what we also talked about the mindset, pressure testing is done almost every class. In most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, you'll have at least 15, 20, 30 minutes of rolling at the end. And that's just all pressure testing and mindset training and getting you to have that grit. You'll have that in some striking arts as well too. Muay Thai, we spar a lot as well too. But Jiu-Jitsu, lots of good pressure testing, and what Evan said, it's safe. It's safe. It's rare in any martial art where two people can go pretty much 100% without one person getting severely injured, if not both getting severely injured. Because in Muay Thai, if you got two guys pounding on each other, somebody's gonna get hurt.
Yeah. if you have two guys in Muay Thai fighting for 30 minutes,
Oh,
can you imagine like
At 100%?
sparring at 100%
Oh.
in every Muay Thai class? You'd be like, you'd have CTE, be like on the second week.
right. You lose enrollment very quickly. Exactly. Also, I'll have to say this: in the majority of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools, our weakness would be takedowns. So we often start on our knees. One reason is safety. It's just safer to start on your knees. You know, getting thrown, that's where there's a lot of injuries if you fall wrong or they fall on you. And so takedowns can be a weak factor too. So if you enjoy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you think you're going to use that on the street, how's your takedowns? You know, are you able to take somebody down? So that can be a weakness there as well too. And so that brings me to our anti-grappling program. You might have seen some of our ads where I say 90% of my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is ineffective on the street. And only 10% would be effective. But which 10%? And so I'll share with you the outline of that basically. You want to avoid the takedowns. You want to be able to avoid a sloppy takedowns. Now that people are watching UFC, they see takedowns. They hear about takedowns. Oh yeah, he gets his hands together. He can pull him off the fence and take him down. You know, he's gonna grab a single leg and run the pipe. You know, so people are hearing that regularly, and it's becoming more part of the environment that you'll encounter on the street. So you want to be able to avoid sloppy takedowns. And I mean, we're talking UFC fan takedowns. If you think you're gonna be able to avoid a takedown from a high school or college wrestler, good luck with that unless you do high school and college wrestling. It's going to be very tough. So, but a sloppy UFC fan takedown, you should be able to take care of that. You should also be able to fight your way out of bad positions. So be able to reverse bad positions. What are some bad positions? Basically anything where you're on your back and they're past your legs. And so things like side control, mount, those are the two bad positions you need to know about. You know, back control, that's very rare on the street with somebody who doesn't grapple. So, but you might end up in side control. You might end up in mount. Even for positions like if you have full guard or half guard, you want to learn how to get back onto your feet from those positions, because in Spark Jiu-Jitsu, half guard, full guard, those are good positions to attack from. But on the street, you don't want to hang out there for reasons that we talked about before. And also, you want to also be able to strike from your back too. So if somebody's standing over you, how are you going to retaliate so that keep them off of you in the first place? And then, of course, what I already talked about, getting back to your feet. How are you going to get back to your feet safely without getting your teeth kicked in? All right. And so that's kind of our overview of the anti-grappling program.
Those are all excellent points. I agree with everything that you guys said. Since I started the conversation with a giant no, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not good for self-defense, I do want to present the other side, which is, you know, if that's all you've got for training, then go all in, but try to find a professor who will give you the art, maybe get you ready for competition, but to also say, okay, this is what you want to do if you happen to find yourself on the street like this. So I'm fortunate that I train with Professor Danny Suarez of So-Called Combat Club and Rounders MMA. And yeah, we'll go through a concept and he'll run it as an art. Then he'll say, okay, this is what we're going to do for competitions because I want you guys to win in competition. But then if this is a street fight, well, this is how you're going to modify it. And he'll start adding in strikes, or he'll say, let's just avoid this. Here's how to get out of it as quickly as you can. Because he is a true mixed martial artist and has studied many different styles, he has that outside perspective. And so it's a huge honor to train under him, because he's a 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but at the same time, he's not a diehard. You know, he's not a true believer. He also understands the importance of learning striking and learning weapons and other aspects. So try to find that professor who will give you the other perspective. And if you can't, then try to find a training partner who can give you a well-rounded experience.
All excellent points. gonna plug my book, Combative's Blueprint here.
Right.
For that reason, you need a little bit of competence in every range of combat, and the Combative's Blueprint will give you some suggestions for that. And then if you want to deep dive into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, go nuts. I think if you have a good school, I think your professor will be able to accommodate and be able to talk to you about stuff. Like, I train at Flooring Martial Arts, and they're great teachers, mostly sport focused. But there are, if you ask a question specifically related to like more combative, people will answer you, and they will talk about, some of the instructors will specifically talk about, well, this is good for a street type situation, but it's usually not brought up unless people specifically ask about it, right? Because most of the people are not there for street self-defense. They're there to learn grappling, to compete, to socialize, to all the other positive benefits we talked about in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu episode, which there's a ton. And I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, I don't know if it's my favorite martial art, but it's up there. I think it's one of the best people can do, period. For, if we're just pinging off like all the benefits of martial arts, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu might be the best at hitting off a lot of them. Right. And it'll really teach you about yourself. And like I've talked about in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu episode, or remind some people who don't spar very often, like, maybe you shouldn't believe all your own hype. Maybe you should get on the mat and see some what other styles are doing.
That's pretty good that your professor would talk about, like, oh, this won't work for the street, or this. I never bring that up. I'm completely sport focused. If my students ever ask, and none have ever asked, like, would you do this on the street? No one's ever asked, so I've never answered. Mm-hmm. But interesting, very interesting.
It's usually like so a lot of times it's like the guest professor that kind of steps in, or sometimes it'll be a new student who's specifically coming, and they must have told the manager, like, I'm here to learn self-defense for various situations. Yeah. I think the other thing we kind of failed to mention, I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very good for females in general, right? Like self-defense situations, especially assault situations, sexual assault, right? Like you're in hugging range. And knowing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'll know how to reverse positions, how to, again, if they've already overpowered you at a certain point, how to, now I can set them up for an Ezekiel because I'm wearing, a jacket, whatever choke, is available. And I think you'll learn a lot of chokes from suboptimal positions. Yeah,
and it's so empowering for females because watching those videos online of, like, it's kind of like some boys messing with girls and the girls using their jujitsu and they choke out the boy. So and it's so empowering too for that girl and for other females watching as well too. Like, my goodness, that's possible. And it is possible if you train. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're new to grappling, our females will like run over you. Like, it's, I love watching it. Because they're like 150 pounds lighter and they're like choking out big guys. And you're like, yeah, that's about right.
Right.
So, cool.
Yeah, I have a few purple belt female students, and it's great rolling with them. It's just like, it's so cool to see how empowered they become as well too. They start out as timid Asian girls, and they become very confident. It's a superpower. So it's really cool to see that development too in my students.
Any other final thoughts we have on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for street self-defense?
We might have said this before, but it is an honest martial art. And what I mean by that is, if you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can go to any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school in the world. You can roll with somebody and you can know immediately that person deserves the belt they're wearing. Like, when I roll, I'm just a 3-stripe white belt. And if I roll with, like, say, a blue belt and I'm tapping him out or I'm giving a hard time, I'm like, okay, this guy needs more work, or he's a fraud. Like, this guy doesn't deserve his blue belt because I'm just a white belt. I should not be tapping out any blue belt, right? And if I am, that either means I need to be a blue belt and I need to get promoted, or they suck really bad and they never deserve their blue belt. And same thing with when I watch people who come visit from other schools and they roll with my instructor who's a 4th degree black belt. I can literally see him playing with them. They give him no trouble. And then we recently had a brown belt join us, and I was like, oh, wow, he's actually trying. This is him trying. Of course, he tapped the brown belt out like left and right for the next 15 minutes. But he actually was forced to use some energy, whereas versus him sparring against us white belts, right? So it's a very honest system, and that's what I love about it. I'm super addicted to it. So yes, even though I said no in the beginning, I love this art.
Cool. Let's final shout outs, upcoming stuff we have for Tiga Tactics. Start off with Conrad.
All right. So we have seminars coming up in October. I'll be in Maryland the first weekend of October, the October 4th and 5th, as well as we have a seminar right in Patrick's backyard later on.
Yes, we'll be having a combative seminar in Fullerton, California, at Rounders MMA, which is my home gym. So if you're in the western part of America, please join us. It's going to be another great time. We're going to announce the topic soon, but it's going to be another epic in-person seminar.
Good stuff. And then a quick shout out to Tenneco Knives. Again, just like the Vulpes training products, check out my YouTube page. There's reviews on there. There's links down below. And Takedown Apparel, Takedown Shop. I'll check down below. More links for you guys. And then check out my books, Combative's Blueprint, Run If You Can, Destroy If You Must, etc.
Really good books. And shout out to Thai Battle Boxing. Make great gear, the gear that we use at our gym.
Anything else?
No, thank you for listening, guys. We really appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
All right, take care, everyone.
Stay alert, stay humble, stay connected.